The airport buzzed with the usual chaos: families dragging suitcases, business travelers glued to their phones, kids dashing ahead of exhausted parents. Amidst the crowd, Colonel David Carter strode in, his polished dress shoes clicking against the tile floor. He had done this routine countless times, but today was different. The weight on his chest wasn't just from the ribbons and medals adorning his uniform, it was from the casket waiting on the tarmac, draped in the American flag. Private First Class Jason Reynolds, 21 years old, gone too soon. Carter had known Jason since the young soldier first joined his unit. A fresh recruit, eager with a smile that could disarm even the most hardened veterans. He was the kind of soldier who stayed late to help his fellow men, who volunteered for the toughest assignments, and who wrote long letters home to his mother, promising her he would return safe. He had not. The colonel adjusted his hat, inhaled deeply, and approached the airline counter, setting down his military orders and ID. The agent behind the desk barely glanced at him, typing something into her computer. Then she frowned, looked up, hesitated just a beat too long. "Sir, can I see that again?" Her voice tightened. He handed the documents back, watching her closely. A flicker of uncertainty crossed her face. She turned to whisper to a coworker. The second agent glanced over, unreadable. The moment stretched, thick with something Carter had seen before but never got used to. When she finally spoke, her smile was stiff, forced. "I'm sorry, sir, but there's an issue with your ticket. We can't allow you to board at this time." Carter exhaled slowly. He had navigated war zones, foreign diplomacy, and political entanglements. But this was different. "I'm escorting the remains of a fallen soldier," he said evenly, tapping the paperwork. "Everything is in order." The agent wouldn't meet his eyes. "I understand, sir, but there's a security protocol in place. We can't override it." Security protocol? What policy? Carter had flown under these orders before. Behind him, the line grew, people shifted, murmuring. But instead of stepping aside, Carter squared his shoulders. He wasn't leaving without an answer. A gruff voice cut through the tension. "Sir, do you have an issue with his military clearance?" Carter turned slightly. A man in his 60s, a weathered face under a USMC hat, a Marine. A veteran stood a few spots back. The supervisor cleared his throat. "No, sir, this isn't about clearance. We just have to follow protocol." The Marine folded his arms. "Yeah? I've flown 1,000 times and I've never seen protocol stop a soldier from escorting one of our own home." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Then a young woman holding her phone stepped forward. "Excuse me, sir. You're not letting him board?" Her voice wasn't loud but deliberate. People around her started paying attention. "That's correct," Carter said. She turned her phone screen toward him. "I'm live right now. People need to see this." And just like that, the floodgates opened. Phones went up. A man shook his head, saying, "This is wrong. He's escorting a fallen soldier." Another woman waved toward the counter. "Can someone explain why?" The energy in the terminal shifted. It wasn't just an inconvenience anymore. It was an injustice. The airline staff could feel it too. The agent looked ready to disappear behind her screen. The supervisor ran a hand over his temple, then a murmur from the back. "It's trending." A young man in a hoodie whistled. "Damn, this is everywhere now." The woman in a denim jacket gasped at her phone. "It's on Facebook." The Marine grunted. They don't even know what kind of storm they just started. The airport speakers crackled. "Attention passengers, Flight 237 to Phoenix will be delayed. We apologize for any inconvenience," but no one was listening. The focus was here, on Carter, on the injustice unfolding before them. Another voice called out, "He's on Twitter." A screen turned. A tweet in bold capital letters. They just denied a U.S. Army colonel his flight while escorting a fallen soldier. "This is how we treat our heroes? Let him fly?" Numbers climbed, retweets, comments, likes. Then another post, this one from a veteran advocacy group. We are aware of the disgraceful incident happening at U.S. airport. Our soldiers deserve better. Expect action. The supervisor returned, but he wasn't alone. A man in a sleek Navy suit, airline ID clipped neatly to his pocket, walked beside him, his pace brisk. "Colonel, I apologize for the miscommunication," the rep said, voice carefully controlled. "There was an error in our system. We're working to get you on your flight as soon as possible." Miscommunication. Carter had heard that word before. It meant we got caught. He let the silence hang. The rep shifted under the weight of it. "I see," Carter finally said. "An error?" "Yes, sir. A regrettable mistake." The Marine scoffed. The crowd wasn't buying it either. "We'd like to personally escort you to the gate," the rep continued. "First-class accommodations, of course." As if that was the point. Carter straightened his uniform. "If no one recorded this, if no one spoke up, would I still be standing here?" Silence. "You don't need to answer," he said. "We already know." A murmur ran through the crowd. Someone whispered, "He's right." The rep stiffened. "Colonel, let's get you on your flight now." Before Carter could respond, another voice cut in. "Sir." A younger man in an airport security uniform held out a phone to the airline rep, his face pale. "I think you should see this." The rep scrolled, his face blanched. The Marine folded his arms. "Something wrong?" A major news outlet had picked up the story. U.S. Army colonel denied flight while escorting fallen soldier. Airline scrambles for answers. Damage control was no longer an option. And then a final shift. A man in a dark blue suit entered. His posture spoke of true authority. "Colonel Carter," he said, extending his hand. "I'm Major Thomas Beckett, Department of the Army. We're handling this now." Beckett turned to the rep. "Colonel Carter and Private Reynolds will not be flying commercial. The Pentagon has arranged for a private military flight. His transport is waiting." A ripple of murmurs. The U.S. military had stepped in. Carter exhaled. Not in relief, he didn't need saving, but because the mission was finally back on course. He looked at the Marine. "Appreciate you, brother." The Marine tipped his head. "We look out for our own." Carter gave one last glance at the crowd. The people who had spoken up refused to let this slide. He adjusted his uniform, squared his shoulders, and walked out. Not toward the gate, toward something bigger. And for the airline, the fallout was just beginning.